All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Breakfast Daily Weekend, and now we're about to have a conversation that might interest you. If you're parents and you have kids, and you have growing kids especially, I think this conversation is going to be very beneficial to you. We're going to be talking about drug abuse and illicit trafficking. Drug abuse and illicit trafficking, and in the studio with us is no stranger to us, especially if you watched before you say I do. Here's Reverend Bernie Osei-Dua, who is a counselor and a coach. And we also have Reverend Dr. Joseph Kofi Aido, who is a specialist psychiatrist. You are
Gentlemen, welcome
to the
and
show.
good morning.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Thank you for having us.
Great.
Right. Now, drug abuse and illicit trafficking. Drug abuse is actually a very serious topic because it's something we have to deal with as a society every year. It's not as if it's going away anytime soon. But what are your thoughts on drug abuse? Let's start with you, Reverend. You're both reverends.
I think we should have just start with the reverend. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, and a great good morning to your cherished viewers.
Yeah.
I think the conversation about drug abuse is something that over the years has become very alarming
Right.
by virtue of the many youth that are actually falling victims to its impact and what it's driving in the youth today. As a practicing HR, sometimes in some quarters that I do practice, you practically can see how much a lot of young people are really, getting into all manner of practices when it comes to the use of unprescribed, drugs. And this is causing and creating a lot of menace in society. The drive we see today when it comes to people being exposed to, the use of drugs has become, forgive me for the better choice of a very crazy for what the future holds for us. And I think that what I love about the conversation today is, being able to come to the point of what do we then do about it.
Right.
So this is basically maybe my introduction to this conversation.
Right.
What about you?
Okay. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to do a lot of advocacy. I always say that the way to deal with some of these drug issues is when we do a lot of education.
That's correct.
And thank you for this platform. The thing with being what we call drug addiction or drug dependence is that naturally there is a hormone in your brain called dopamine, and it is the hormone that gives you euphoria. And the two main ways of getting this euphoria is through food and sex. And psychoactive substances like alcohol, cannabis, tramadol, and all these others, they give you higher levels of dopamine than food and sex. And your body will always want to feel good. So once you start using them at a younger age, your body gets used to that kind of euphoria.
Right.
So you realize that even when you don't have that kind of euphoria, there will be the craving to go and use. So sometimes people actually think that, oh, people just become dependent. It's because there are a lot of neurophysiological things going on in your brain that makes you dependent. And like you said, right now, from the statistics we have,
I was going to ask that.
over the past 5 years, we've seen a surge in the use of substances with diagnosis, and these are the ones that have been reported.
So which kind of substances are people using
the most in Ghana?
most right now?
So the most in Ghana now, the top three will be alcohol, cannabis, and nicotine.
Nicotine.
Then you have the prescription drugs like tramadol and cocaine, tramadol and heroin and codeine. Then you have heroin and cocaine. But the top three will be nicotine, alcohol, and cannabis. Where nicotine is actually, nicotine and alcohol are what you call gateway drugs. So most people will start experimenting with either alcohol or nicotine. That's
So nicotine is cigarette,
Yes. So then most young people will start exploring with these. Then it will open the gates for them to try other substances.
Right.
So these are the three main ones that we see. But currently, the prescription drugs are also going up because of the bothers the way we don't check our prescription drugs. Actually, drugs like tramadol and codeine are what we call prescription drugs. If you don't have a prescription with a stamp,
I know.
you're not supposed to be. But if you go to our markets, most of our markets, people are selling some of these drugs on the side.
But you see, I feel like it's not just the market. Some pharmacies too, if you just walk into it. Because like, I remember when I had an injury and it was on my knee and it was very painful. So I needed something stronger and they actually prescribed tramadol. I just walked into there and then just asked them. Nobody asked me for my prescription. They just sold it to me. So, you know, it gets me to ask this question. At what point do you think that what role do you think that the pharmacists are also playing, or big pharmas are also playing when it comes to this issue? Because these are prescribed drugs. People walk in and buy codeine. People drink codeine like water.
And I had an experience. I was not well. I went to the hospital and then I had serious migraine. And the doctor prescribed a particular pain med for me. So when I got to the counter and I showed my prescription, I was actually with a prescription. When I showed the prescription and he gave me the strip of the medicine, I looked at the content and I saw that it had tramadol in there. And then, like, there was a scare. I just, no, I don't want it. And he was like, oh, why? It's what the doctor has prescribed for you because of your migraine. I said, no, I won't even risk it because I'm not taking something as strong as this before, and I don't know how I am going to react to it. So I asked for a change. Do you understand me? And so on Chris's question, how do you think the pharmacies or the Pharmaceutical Council is contributing to selling over-the-counter drugs to people even without prescription?
I think the council is, if you like, an organization that is supposed to be contributing to the regulation of practices. The pharmacy shops are businesses. They want to make money. Now, these businesses are running with a level of, if you like, should be practicing with a code. Unfortunately, in many systems, there are challenges people need to be able to meet. And by virtue of that, sometimes they bypass or compromise some of these codes. Then you have some of these situations. I have, you know, situations where you will go to hospitals by virtue of the fact that they need to be able to make certain targets. They will book you in to make sure that you sleep in so that they can be able to, you know, meet up whatever targets that they are running. When these things happen in an environment and there is no ombudsman with a task force that is able to put an eye on what is on the ground, of course, then we create a room that breeds people taking advantage of the ignorant guy who walks in and can even be able to pick it. Listen, some run all these operations and in the back end, they have a back door that can be able to, of course, you know, give you whatever you want to pay for. Unfortunately, these are some of the things that run in our communities. There are pharmacy shops that when you walk in without a prescription, you know, they will not give you. They won't. So I think that the reality is we need to be able to have the regulator or the organizations whose responsibilities is to monitor, inspect, and man their processes and operations of these organizations so that effectively we can be able to also manage what comes in. I think we spoke about this earlier. Unfortunately, that's another, you know, area that we have a serious, you know, ploy or fault. The way things get into our system is very interesting. Today, we have our, you know, customs, excise, and preventive service at certain posts. But we know that there are 1,001 ways that people can enter into Ghana with whatever they have. Even if they come through the right route, they can pay people off. So, I mean, the integrity of even our defenses, or if you like, our protection, does not exist.
So how do you think these problems actually affect the public health system?
Okay, so one, if somebody is dependent on drug or what you call addiction, the first thing you realize is that it's money intensive. So first of all, the person will have to spend capital to get these drugs. And sometimes in an attempt to get it, if they don't, then they will resort to social vices. Sometimes they may have to pay fire, other times they may have to engage in armed robbery just so that they can get the money to get these drugs. Two, you also realize that quality time at work is affected. Assuming somebody is dependent on alcohol. When the person comes to work, the person is not productive. So you realize that productivity itself is compromised. Maybe this person may be the only skilled person actually in the department to maybe man that machine. And because of his substance dependence, you will not get the best out of him. The thing which is very critical is the age distribution. Realize that the majorities are between 20 and 34. And also now we are seeing increases between the age of 10 and 14.
What?
Yep.
10 and 14. And these are young ones. Your brain actually...
10 and 14,
yes.
Doing what?
Using substances,
Yes.
alcohol,
Alcohol,
cannabis.
yes. So yesterday there was, I think on the news review, there was a paper that reported, I've forgotten the particular paper, but Kweku and I actually talked about it, and we did a phone-in segment, and the conversations or the contributions from parents and the viewers were amazing, because it's alarming. What is a 10-year-old child doing with alcohol or drug or substance abuse?
So how does it even start? Let's talk about a 10-year-old.
So a 10-year-old, Albert Bandura says that children are socialized by what they see.
Right.
So we glamorize the use of substances in our music videos, in our movies, online. Now, almost every music video, you see somebody with a glass, and these are people we are trying to portray as idolize as role models. Or most of our music videos, you see people with cannabis, and people will be smoking cigars with shisha and all these things. That is what they see. You can tell a child to do this one, but what they idolize is what they actually practice. So we had during the mental health, we went to some of the neighborhoods around Ayawasi Central, Nima, Kutubabi, and we talked to students. And you get people coming out after the talks, 13, 14, that they've started using cannabis, they've tried alcohol, they've tried nicotine, even some have tried cocaine.
Wow.
So it's alarming, and we have to do so for our younger generation. If we don't put in measures, like Rev said, if we don't put in measures, we may lose a whole generation, like what is happening elsewhere to fentanyl. Where in California they are losing most of the people to fentanyl because they became lax with some of their laws. You
actually see them on the street.
Yes. And they are losing most of their generation to drug addiction. If we are not solid in putting our foot down to say this is wrong, our music videos, you cannot put some of these things there. You cannot be glamorizing drinking alcohol, taking cannabis, or violence and all these things. We have to make bold statements towards some of these things.
That's correct. And maybe if I can add a voice, recently I think on one of the morning shows on City, I was listening to Bernard and the team do a story about someone who took on the FDA because they had released maybe a regulation or something.
A ban on celebrities and public figures advertising.
Sometimes people don't understand the impact. He spoke about social learning. There's an element of what we call constructivism when it comes to young child development, how people learn and how they observe the people they like and like to mimic and imitate the very things. You realize that if you like your dad or your mom, there's a way they stand, they walk, little things, the way they chew, the way they sneeze, you pick it up so easily. So when you idolize Sarkodie, who comes on with a cigar and a Hennessy and this and that, very soon you want to do the same. See, these are the critical things we talk about. And then the exposure of screens, because many times today, like you say, in music videos and art and so many things, today, the way we try to get our peace of mind by putting a tablet or a phone in the hands of the kids so that they leave you alone without any kind of checks and controls also has its own impact and it's driving those levels of influences, Doc is talking about.
All right, Reverend, let me ask you this. Looking from your side, your outfit, being a psychiatric, how alarming is this? And then the demographics, we've heard children as little as 10 to 14-year-olds engaging in alcohol and drug abuse. How alarming is this? We know that, what's the name? I mean, there are other health implications. Talk about the liver and whatnot. How alarming is this?
So he's the specialist.
Oh, he's
my area. No, it's okay. My area is more with the support system.
The counseling.
The counseling.
Right. Okay.
And I like the element of, you mentioned how alarming. He shared some statistics in the beginning. As of 2018, the levels we see as a last year, what the statistics show, it's been a ramp of about 23% influence in our communities. 23.1 or percent. That should let you know in our secondary schools. Guys are just sneaking into the bushes and do their thing and come back. They use it to bully. You know, a lot of these things are happening. Unfortunately, we don't even have the support systems in our sick bays in the schools to be able to handle what do you do if someone comes in intoxicated, when someone comes in high. So it becomes like an in thing. And if you have seniors who can bully you into try this, you know, do this, and you cannot actually lose yourself from there.
That's the issue of peer pressure.
Exactly. And the influences they have on our kids. And those are some of the things we're talking about. If nothing is done in the next 10 years, trust me, our young people are going to lose the fight.
Now let me come to you again, looking at it from your point. How does this affect our community and society as a whole?
Life is sacred. I always say that life is sacred. And for the young man, your brain fully develops before, I think after age, between 21 and 25. So from 16 to 20, your brain is not yet fully developed. That your brain is still forming. So research has shown that kids who abuse substances, they lose most of their frontal cortex. And that's what you use to make executive decisions.
Yeah.
So you realize that the functional MRI scans show that blood flow to that part of their brain is very, very limited as compared to normal controls. So it means that you have a whole generation who find it very difficult making executive decisions. So they just make decisions out of impulse, out of feeling, out of emotion. So just because they feel they want to do it, then they want to do it. Just because there is no... we cannot look at our neighbor and say, okay, this is not good. And that is the danger I am seeing, that if we lose most of our young ones, this one, we will not have people who can make proper decisions in the future. Two, the other thing with things like alcohol. Alcohol in the long term causes something we call Wernicke's encephalopathy and Korsakoff syndrome. It's a form of dementia where people lose their memory. So then you don't remember things you learn. You don't remember, then you begin to confabulate.
Would you say it's like an amnesia?
Yes. But it is because if you drink too much alcohol, you lack vitamin B1. And it is you see the consequence after about 30 years, 40 years, then you are like 55 and you sit in a board meeting, you don't remember what has been discussed or what was discussed the previous day. So it's got to do more with how people are going to make executive decisions and decisions concerning our lives and future. So just imagine, you have somebody in the next 20 years whose brain is half gone. Sitting there making decisions for you.
In a political role.
In a political role. You realize that...
Or marrying your children.
So you realize that certain decisions that are being made, sometimes you ask yourself that are people really okay?
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. We have seen a lot of, you know, that kind of situations where people make decisions.
And you're like, what's going on?
Yeah. It could be the alcohol. It could be the drugs. You guys got to stop using